Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel Custom Carving and Epoxy UK. So after the slight disaster in the last video, trying the blooms in the new mould, where we came out with these interesting, I suppose, sun catchers you could call them now, I wanted to see what would happen if I tried the same effects with the same colours without moving them, and hoping that we'll get a great effect on the blooms. Hopefully that we can get 3 different types as well, because that was the whole idea of the first project. If you haven't seen that video and seen the mistakes, basically we moved the blooms mid sort of settling. So what happened is they all shifted, and then I had to create a different design in them to still make use of the pieces. But had some really good comments on Facebook, so thank you for those that have commented and said that they still look really nice. But in this video, we're hopefully going to do it right without any mistakes and see what the results are. So let's get straight to it. Here we are, guys. Back in the workshop, gloves on, respirator on as usual. Now I'm not going to go into too much detail at the start of this because you can pick it up on the first video where we made the mistake. But basically I'm going to try the project all over again with the 3D blooms, try and get 3 different types of blooms with exactly the same colours that we used last time without moving them this time, and hopefully making sure that by not moving them we get the results that we want. So I've already mixed up the resin. It's already been heating up as well. So if you're doing 3D blooms, you want your your resin to be around about 30 degrees centigrade before you actually start. And that is what causes that process. When the resin starts moving inwards, that's what causes your blooms with your white pigment. It's been about 30 minutes, 35 minutes, I would say. Just checking the temperature of the resin. It's at 28.9, so we're almost there. So it's time to start getting prepared for when the resin is actually ready. So just trying to get everything organised, because once you've poured, it's almost a little bit too late to get organised. So I'm going to be using this ocean white pigment that I got from Temu. I'm going to be using the same metallic colours as last time, so this metallic purple and this also blue paste. And then this was the papaya and the bronze mica that we mixed together and got a really, really good colour. It's now one of my favourite colours, so I think I'm going to be using that in a few different projects, to be honest. Getting everything ready in the pots to mix up, and then just checking the resin again, and 29.4, we're almost there. But you are better it being slightly warmer than cooler, because obviously the warmer it is, as it contracts, as it cools down and then heats back up, that is what creates that bloom effect. So you want to make sure it's at 30 degrees. Loads of people have messaged me saying they're having real problems with blooms. I think that's probably your biggest problem, is a lot of people go by the standard 20 minutes, and that depends on your resin, depends on your temperature, depends on a lot of different factors. So get yourself a digital laser thermometer like this. It will tell you the temperature of that resin, and you want it at a minimum of 30 degrees before you get started. For me, with this Janchun resin from Temu, it tends to take around about 35 to 40 minutes depending on the temperature outside. Again, make sure your tables are level as well, especially when you do things like blooms. If not, they will just shift. So I got a spirit level out and made sure that I got this table as level as it could be for these blooms after the last time. And always mix up your white pigment as well, because otherwise what you'll find is it just settles at the bottom and you won't get an even consistency when you mix up your white. For this project as well, this time round, I'm actually going to be trying different piping bags for each colour as well, which will give me a bit more control. And as you saw there, we're already at the 30 degrees, so we are ready to go. So what I'm going to do first of all is just mix up the white. The only thing I've added to this so far is some blue iridescent powder, because I really like the effect that had last time. And then I'm just going to pour in some resin. Again, I'm just guesstimating at this point, but I know last time I mixed far too much, so I'm probably going to go for around about 40 to 50 ml for the 6 coasters. If I do get any spare, I can always use it in another mould. And as you can see, it's just that iridescent powder that I've got in there at the moment. Now I'm going to add around about 5 drops of this ocean white pigment. And you want it to be still slightly transparent for the blooms to work. You don't want it to be fully opaque. You still want that slight level of transparency, which I suppose you're going to have to decide for yourself, depending on what white pigment you're using, depending on your resin, and depending on what you think looks slightly transparent still. But again, just mixing it in. And that, for me, was about perfect. I could still just about see the stick behind it. But it was, for me, it was opaque enough to be able to put the blooms in. Again, just got a piping bag here that I'm going to pour this into. And if you haven't tried it with piping bags, my advice is get some piping bags, because it gives you an awful lot more control over the resin, the flow, and hopefully it will prevent as many blobs, which is one of the worst things when you're doing these kind of effects. The last thing you want to do is unmold after putting all that work in and finding out you've got lots of blobs on the bottom. And that's now done in the piping bag, ready to go. Just going to leave that in the side cup for the moment and mix up the other colours. So first one I'm going to go with is this papaya and bronze mix mica. And again, you know what, guys, mix your micas up. Create your own colours. It makes every piece you do unique, individual to you, and nobody else will have it anywhere else in the world. So don't be afraid to mix them up and get a completely new colour. So I'm just putting in some resin in the other 2 pots as well for the other 2 colours. Again, completely eyeballing this. I'm not sort of being exact with the measurements or anything like that. I'm just guessing roughly how much colour I think I'm going to need, and then the rest of it will be going into the coasters. So this is that papaya and bronze, which the papaya was really bright orange, and it just gave the bronze a slightly brighter colour. And I actually really liked it, because sometimes I think when you get these bronzes and metallics, they look a little bit bland, but actually this came out absolutely stunning. So one of my favourite colours to use now, papaya and bronze mixed together. And again, this time round, I'm going to put them all in piping bags to give me that control, hopefully, over each and every one of them. And I'm going to speed this up while I do the other 2 colours, but basically I'm just doing exactly the same as I'm doing with this one, but I'm just going to be mixing those colours, put them in the piping bags, and then we'll be ready to go. And now that's done, just going to pour the remainder of the resin into this coaster mold. Again, completely guesswork here. I'm not doing exact measurements, but I'm trying to get them all at least level at eyeball level. So just going around them all, making sure that we've got a reasonably even coating in each one, basically. So just getting an even amount in each, and then whatever's left, pouring it into the ones that I think are a little bit shallower than the others, so that we've got a reasonably equal depth of coaster. And now that's done, just going to torch off any of these bubbles that have come to the surface. Again, when you're using silicone molds, you don't want to be using a blowtorch. Just use a long nose lighter, because otherwise you could risk bonding the resin to the mold, ruining your piece and also ruining your mold. Just not worth the risk in my mind. Then what I like to do is go around and get any of those bubbles out that I can see. There's nothing worse than when you finish the project, everything's worked out, and then you can suddenly see a massive bubble in the middle. So with these coasters, I like to go around the edge of each one, and that loosens any of those bubbles back up to the surface. Give them a quick torch again, and that should get rid of any of those bubbles that you've just loosened. And now the fun part. Starting off with the white, exactly the same as before. I'm going to cut a small hole, probably about 2 mil is the sort of size of the hole, and then I'm going to try and create 3 different designs in the different coasters. So these first 2, I'm just going to go for the standard spirals that I think most people start with when it comes to blooms. And literally just take your time, put those spirals in, try and get an even amount in each spiral without blobbing. If you go back over it, there's a risk that you'll have a double layer and then it will just sink to the bottom because you've put a little bit too much weight in, because there's almost too much white in there. So try and keep it even, try and keep it steady, and I think the more that you do this, the easier it gets, to be honest with you. So again, doing this with the one on the bottom, and then I'm going to go with a slightly different design for the next 2. But if you are just starting out with blooms as well, this is probably the easiest way to do it, is just literally do that spiral, and then you can put your petals in afterwards, after you've put your colours on, and it still comes out with some really, really stunning effects. Try not to touch the edge of the mould either as well, because that could affect your petals. So that's those. These ones I'm going with more of a sort of individual sort of swirly petal shape is what I'm sort of trying to get, is the way that I would describe it. And again, just going around in shallow circles, trying wherever possible not to sort of overlap each other and create that sort of blobbing effect. But I just thought it'd be something completely different with the design. And the more different your design is, the more petals you're going to come out with, and hopefully the better looking the piece. Again, just repeating it in this one, and then in the next 2, I'm going to go with more elongated petals. That's that one done. And then this one, I'm just going to go with an up and down motion. Now, the important thing is here is try not to go all the way back into the center, because otherwise you get a big build up in that center and you're almost guaranteed a blob. So wherever possible, try not to come fully in and try not to overlap. And as you can see, just creating 3 completely different patterns there, hoping that we'll get 3 different blooms. Now this is the one where I think I've gone a little bit heavy in the center, and you can almost see it there. You can see that build-up of white, which unfortunately I think is going to cause it to blob, but we'll see when we demold. But once you've done it, there's not really a lot you can do. I've seen some people take some out and stuff like that, but I find that when you do that, it still usually blobs. So just be careful, take your time, and try not to overlap as much as possible. And now that's done, I'm pretty much going to do exactly the same design with the other colours. I am going to fast forward it so you guys haven't got to stay and watch all of that, but literally it's exactly the same design with each of the 3 different colours. And what I was going to do here was, which I realise now that I forgot to do, was add some alcohol to each of these as well, just to make them a little bit lighter, especially this one, because in the previous experiment, this is the one that seemed to blob a little bit because of the weight of the mica. So what I was going to do was add 10 to 20 drops of alcohol just to lighten it a little bit before I did this, but unfortunately I forgot, but maybe we can try that in the next project. And whilst I'm doing this, just want to say thank you to everybody that has subscribed to the channel already. It's really appreciated. And if you haven't, do us a favor, take 2 seconds. It's completely free. Subscribe to the channel. You'll get notified of new content, and it really helps us grow. And the plan is to keep growing this channel, keep doing experiments, and the more we grow, the more content that we can bring you. But again, thank you to those that have already. And if you haven't, takes 2 seconds, click the box, click subscribe, and yeah, let's keep growing. We've also now launched a shop on Etsy as well, so if anybody's interested in a piece that you've seen in one of the experiments, normally within 2 weeks it gets listed in the shop, and it's a great way to support the channel. So by all means, have a look on the Etsy shop, and if there's anything you like, buy it. Is all the colours in. So now just going to torch everything again now those colours are in case we've introduced any bubbles by adding the colours. And then that's pretty much it. It's going to be a case of leaving it to see how the bloom develops for 24 hours, and then it will be time for the demold. So really excited. Remembering this time not to move anything, and it can be tempting, especially if you've got a few projects on the go, but try not to move it once you've got to this point. So just going to draw some petals in as well on these circular ones. Pretty straightforward. 12 o'clock, 6 o'clock, 3 o'clock and 9 o'clock to create your initial first 4 petals. And then what I try and do is just split the difference, and then that should give you 8 reasonably even shaped petals when you're done. And then there's a little bit of a swirl in the middle as well. I just think it makes it look a little bit neater. Then repeating the process for the one underneath. And the plan was here to get 3 different styles of coaster, but 2 of each is what I was aiming for. And then what I'm doing here is just pulling out those petals as well. So we've gone inwards when we've created them, and now I'm just going from the center of each one outwards to try and create more of that, I suppose, that tip at the top of the petal. And if you can hear any snoring in the background, apologies. My dog is asleep on the settee as I'm doing the voiceover for this video. So if you can hear any snoring in the background, I can assure you it's not me, it is my dog. And let us know in comments, guys, if there's any kind of projects that you want us to try doing that we haven't done yet, or if there's anything that you've thought about doing but just haven't wanted to risk it yourselves. Put it in comments and we'll make it happen. And then with these 2, I just decided to give it a bit of a swirl in the middle. And the same with these. But just literally a tiny swirl, and that was to try and sort of neaten things up a little bit. And what I was doing here is I was just looking at the edges. Any bits that were clinging onto the edge, I just tried to loosen, so that hopefully it didn't impact the blooming effect of the petals. But so far, these are looking good. They haven't shifted, they haven't moved, so I've clearly leveled the table properly. And by not moving them, it's keeping them reasonably central, which is what I wanted. And now it's just a case of waiting 24 hours for the demold, or in your case, 10 seconds. those were done. I just thought I would use any of the spare that I've got to continue topping up these pendant molds from last time, because actually I really like the effect that I managed to get on a few of them. And I've got a plan for these as well, which will be announced over the next couple of videos. So literally just pouring in the excess and creating some designs. To stop myself here as well, because I very nearly moved them again and made the same mistake, so just be careful so that you don't make the same mistakes that I did in the last video. But just going to take you in for a bit of a close-up on these coasters, and then it's a case of waiting 10 seconds or 24 hours for that resin to fully cure, and then we can do the demold. And you can already see the bloom start to appear. So I was really happy with the results that we were getting this time. Again, look at that sparkle already coming through, and I think the colours were amazing together. And it did look at this point as if we were going to get 3 different designs, which is what I was aiming for, so really happy. And we are back. It's the next day, ready for the demold, and I can't get over these. You know, they're amazing. Just to say they were made with the spare resin, so absolutely loving those. And what I've thought about doing is I'm going to be topping these up with UV epoxy and turning them into pendants. Even that side, just through the silicone, looks really cool. So, and what I'm going to do, we've launched an Etsy shop, and at the minute, Etsy, the way it works is unless you get a few sales coming through with good reviews, you don't tend to get your shop publicised, and you don't seem to make any traction. So I'm going to pick the 10 best pieces out of these, and for the first 10 people that buy a pendant from the shop, and the link is above, I'm going to throw one of those in. So you're going to get 2 pendants for the price of 1. So again, if you're into your resin jewellery, have a look, see if there's anything you like, buy a pendant, and you'll get 1 thrown in for free for the first 10 customers. So let's see what happens. And I'm really excited to see how these have worked out, and you can see they haven't really drifted, so that's good. It shows that if you don't move them, hopefully you don't ruin them, and actually they all look an even depth. So going to start off with these 2, which were the standard petal design that we did. This one was sort of the twirly pattern design, and then this one was the long one. So I'm hoping that we've got 3 different designs. I'm hoping that we haven't blobbed. So let's get straight into it and have a look. Well, first of all, that is a much better thickness than what we got yesterday. And actually, I love that. I think it's really worked. Not really any blobbing, just that middle bit, and look at those petals, absolutely stunning. Almost look like butterfly wings actually, those ones, but yeah, happy with that one so far. So 1 is a success, and this one should be very similar, and it is. And look at that, that is absolutely stunning, and I really love that bronzy orange colour coming through as well. And I love how all of those colours are kind of mixed in together. Now, some people say you should always back these, but I actually prefer the transparent look. I think it gives it a more sort of, I don't know, holographic effect. And I actually really like the clear effects. And you can look at the side and see where the petals are actually blooming and coming up. So those 2 seem to be a success. So happy with those. Now, these are the ones that we did the kind of swirly effect, if you remember, with the piping bag. So I'm hoping to get a slightly different effect. Again, good thickness. But again, it seems to have blobbed a little bit more on this one. And I don't know why, to be honest with you, because if anything, I would have thought it would be lighter with that effect. But still really like the different texture compared to that. It's almost a completely different flower. So again, I think that's been a success, I would say. So far, I would say that's 4 out of 4. This one as well, absolutely lovely. Just the way that they've all mixed and created their own little blooms. Bit of a blob there, but I think that's unavoidable when you do these, but absolutely loving these. And then these ones were the ones that I did sort of the almost long petal-like effects, and they seem to have pulled in a little bit more, so these will be interesting to see as well. Wow. And that is completely different. Love that. And it's like we've got the different colours of the different petals, but they're more individualised. But they are like a flower, the way that they've all gathered in at the centre. And yeah, I like those as well. So it shows, you know, keep trying it. Oh, this one not so keen on. For some reason, that one's more of a blobby centre. But again, love it. Love the depth of those petals. What do you think? Do you think it's been a success? Was it worth doing again? I do think they look more like flowers, which is good. And we did get the different effects, so happy with that. Happy with that as an experiment. And I think we've got 6 gorgeous coasters, slightly different sizes, but that doesn't matter. And overall, it's been a success. So I hope you have enjoyed the video. And I'll give you a few close-ups of these now. But even the ones that are blobbed, you know, I don't think it takes away from the effect. Absolutely stunning. And what I might try next time, which I was going to do this time and then forgot, if I'm being completely honest, was maybe add a little bit of alcohol to those heavier pigments in the mica to try and prevent any blobbing. But again, really happy with those results. So if you've liked the video, like and subscribe, and make sure you join us on the next one, and make sure you check out the shop on Etsy as well if there's anything you like. As I say, the first 10 customers will get an extra pendant thrown in from the 10 best of those pendants. So loving these. If you like it, try it, do it yourself, and show the results.